You think motivation is power. That's the problem. You're sitting there waiting to feel like doing the work, waiting for some surge of energy, some rush of inspiration. And while you wait, the 1% are executing on empty. They don't feel motivated. They don't need to feel motivated because they've already decided who they are. Motivation is a drug for amateurs. You chase it every morning like a fix. You need the right music, the right video, the right feeling. And the second that feeling fades, you collapse. Back to scrolling, back to excuses, back to being average. Elite performers don't operate on feelings. They operate on identity. You want to know why you're still weak? Because you're negotiating with yourself every single day. Should I work out? Should I start that project? Should I have this conversation? The 1% don't negotiate. They execute. There's no internal debate, no emotional referendum. The decision was made years ago. Now it's just output. You're not undisciplined because you lack willpower. You're undisciplined because you're still pretending discipline is optional, like it's a personality trait some people are born with. It's not. It's a decision you made once and enforce daily without emotion. Stop waiting to feel ready. Decide who you are right now and act accordingly. Here's what actually happens. Most people build their entire operating system around momentum. They need to feel good to move forward. They need confirmation. They need progress they can see immediately. So they start strong. New routine, new goals, new version of themselves for 3 days. Then life applies pressure. A bad night of sleep, a stressful day at work, an unexpected bill, and suddenly the whole system collapses. Because it was never a system, it was just a good mood. I watched this play out with someone close to me. Talented, intelligent, capable of extraordinary work. But every single project started the same way. Burst of energy, late nights, total immersion. Then, 2 weeks in, the excitement faded. And with it, the work stopped. Not because the goal changed, not because the opportunity disappeared, because the feeling did. That's the trap. You've conditioned yourself to associate action with emotion. You only train when you feel strong. You only work when you feel inspired. You only push when you feel unstoppable. Elite performers invert this entirely. They train especially when they feel weak. They work especially when they feel uninspired. They push especially when they feel resistance. Because they understand something you don't. Discipline isn't built during the good days. It's built during the days you don't want to show up. Stop outsourcing your actions to your emotions. You are not your feelings. Let me show you the actual difference between someone who relies on motivation and someone who operates on discipline. The motivated person wakes up and checks their state. How do I feel? Am I energized? Is today a good day to push? They're performing an internal diagnostic before they even move. And if the reading comes back negative, they adjust. Maybe tomorrow, maybe next week, maybe when things settle down. The disciplined person wakes up and executes the protocol. No check-in, no negotiation. The alarm goes off and the body moves. Not because it feels good, because that's what was decided. This isn't about willpower. It's about eliminating the decision entirely. You think discipline is hard because you're still treating it like a choice. Every morning, you're redeciding whether to train, whether to work, whether to follow through. And every decision costs energy. Every internal debate drains you before the day even starts. Disciplined people don't have that conversation. They removed it from the system years ago. The decision was made once. Now it's just mechanical execution. There's no emotional component, no weighing options. The protocol runs regardless of state. Here's what that actually looks like in practice. Average performer has a hard day. Stressful meeting, conflict with a partner. Bills piling up, they come home depleted. And because they're depleted, they skip the workout. They skip the work session. They tell themselves they'll make up for it tomorrow when they have more energy. Elite performer has the exact same day. Same stress, same conflict, same bills. They come home depleted, and they execute the protocol anyway. Not because they want to, because the protocol doesn't care about their emotional state. That's the shift. You're waiting for conditions to be perfect, for your emotional weather to clear, for motivation to strike like lightning. Disciplined people execute in storms. They understand that the hardest days are the most valuable days, because those are the days that reinforce the operating system. Those are the days that prove you're not negotiating anymore. Let me be specific about what this removes from your life. It removes the morning debate. Should I or shouldn't I? Do I feel like it? Is today the day? That entire internal dialogue disappears. You don't feel like training. You train. You don't feel like working. You work. The feeling is irrelevant. It removes the excuse architecture, the elaborate justification system you've built to explain why today doesn't count, why this situation is different, why you'll start again Monday. Disciplined people don't build those structures because they never pause long enough to need them. It removes the emotional volatility. You know why motivated people burn out? Because they're riding emotional waves, high when they feel good, low when they don't. That oscillation is exhausting. Discipline flattens the curve. You operate at the same level regardless of state. Consistent, reliable, unstoppable. Most people hear this and think it sounds robotic, joyless, like you're removing the humanity from the process. They're wrong. What you're actually removing is the weakness, the part of you that negotiates, the part that makes excuses, the part that quits when it gets hard. That's not humanity. That's self-sabotage dressed up as authenticity. Real freedom isn't doing whatever you feel like. Real freedom is becoming someone who doesn't need to feel like it. Someone who executes regardless. Someone whose actions are predictable, systematic, and divorced from emotional weather. You want to know what separates the 1% from everyone else? It's not talent. It's not resources. It's not luck. It's that they stopped asking permission from their feelings years ago. Here's what you do. Starting tomorrow morning, you build the non-negotiable list. 3 actions, not 30. 3. The ones that define whether you're disciplined or pretending. Write them down tonight. Not in your head, on paper. Physical commitment. Then you remove the decision point entirely. Alarm goes off. You move. No thought, no evaluation. No checking how you feel. The body executes before the mind has time to negotiate. First action happens within 15 minutes of waking. Not eventually. Not after you ease into the day. Immediately. Because the longer you wait, the more your emotions get involved. And emotions are not your ally here. You do this especially on the days you don't want to. Especially when you're tired. Especially when you're stressed. Especially when you have a million excuses lined up. Those days are the ones that matter. Those days are building the architecture. Track execution, not feelings. You don't journal about how motivated you felt. You mark whether you did it or didn't. Binary, clean, accountable. And when you skip, you don't spiral. You don't have an emotional breakdown about your lack of discipline. You just execute double the next day. immediate correction, no drama. This is the protocol. Non-negotiable actions, immediate execution. Zero internal debate. You are no longer someone who waits to feel ready. You are someone who moves regardless. You know what's interesting about disciplined people? They don't talk about discipline. They don't post about their routines. They don't announce their commitments. They don't need external validation for internal standards. They just show up, quietly, consistently, while everyone else is still debating whether today is the day. You'll recognize them by the absence of explanation. No stories about how hard it was. No performance of effort. Just results that compound silently over years, while the motivated ones are still searching for the right feeling. There's a specific kind of power that comes from this. The power of knowing you don't need perfect conditions. The power of watching others collapse under pressure while you remain unmoved. The power of being the only person in the room who doesn't flinch when things get difficult. That's not something you build with motivation. That's what discipline creates. Slowly, permanently, irreversibly. And the moment you stop asking yourself how you feel before you act, you stop being average. You become the person who executes in silence while others are still waiting for inspiration. The 1% aren't more talented than you. They just stopped negotiating years ago.